All right, everybody, you all ready for a DC update? Well, let's talk about the things that have been posted online for the last couple of days. Honestly, it's been kind of quiet out there, but there's something I wanted to address before I show you the pictures that I have grabbed. There was supposedly, and if anybody has pictures of this meeting or has any details, I'd like to hear. But shortly after the story came out that The Flash was tracking to only make $70 million domestically over its opening weekend, there was supposedly a meeting with Mike DeLuca, James Gunn, and Peter Safran. And that James Gunn and Peter Safran came out of that meeting not looking too happy. So what they fail to realize is these movies have tracked the way they have because of the buzz surrounding the firing of Henry Cavill. Now they're going to say, no, it's just people don't want to go see the old Snyderverse stuff. That is not true. That is not what is happening here. Everybody knows that The Flash is a reset, and a lot of people don't want to see stuff that has no relevance to what they're going to be doing in the future. It's a fact. Them announcing that reboot was the dumbest thing they could have done until we went into The Flash and to see what they're going to do at the ending and what the post-credit scenes are going to be, which we did not see at that showing. And so I will be talking about what I have read about those post-credit scenes at the end of today's video. So again, I'm going to give you another spoiler warning. I'll let you know when I get to that point. I've had some people come in and give me a hard time. You're giving too much away. I didn't want to hear this stuff. You don't have to watch the video, dude. I'm telling you. I'm telling you guys before I talk about stuff. So it's on you if you want to watch or you don't want to watch. And the information I'm giving everybody is not stuff I have just made up or seen myself. It's stuff that's already circulating out there. So it's not me making, just coming up with this stuff and spoiling it for everybody. It's already been done in other places. So I am warning you before I talk about that stuff. So you come into my comments, you're looking ignorant when you make those comments. Just straight up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you these pictures and we're going to talk about what to expect with The Flash coming up. All right, so the first photo I hear is kind of funny. It says, that era has come to an end. James Gunn confirms he's strictly DC after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Well, how long is that going to last? Because The Little Mermaid came out this weekend and the era or the box office run for Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is pretty much over, and nothing he does is going to make it any better. So I still have yet to see him come fully into the DC camp. He's still making stupid comments online, through Twitter. But I'll believe this when I see it. We're going to see what happens with James Gunn coming up. But he's also on that writer strike right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how he communicates through Twitter in the coming weeks. Now, this is interesting. I am familiar with this person and some of the stuff that they've posted in the past. They have not been 100% on the stuff that they have posted, but this is pretty interesting. It says, I keep hearing Warner Brothers is actually holding secrets back on The Flash. So the version that has screened early at CinemaCon and for fans is missing surprises that will be there upon release, not just post-credit stuff. There are 2 post-credit scenes. I'm going to talk about one of those here in a little bit. The other one I'm not familiar with and I'm not privy to, and I'll talk about what some of those changes could be. Now, this is interesting when it comes to Warner Brothers because I see this argument all the time. People will get online and argue that Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice made only $873 million at the box office, that it was a failure because it didn't make $1 billion. Yet, the Justice League movie the theatrical release made only $668 million. How in the world do you have all of those heroes together in one film and you don't break $1 billion? Nobody talks about that. Shazam made $368 million, so it almost made half of what Justice League made. Then you had Birds of Prey, which is dog crap. The story to that movie, that for me is the bottom of the barrel, the worst DC movie that has been released. It looked cheap. It had a cheap budget. Everything about that movie was cheap, and the story was stupid. So that movie only made $250 million or $205 million. Then you have Wonder Woman 84, which made $170 million. Then you have The Suicide Squad, which made $169 million, which is the worst performing DC movie until Shazam came out. And I've talked about my feelings on that. Suicide Squad is my second least favorite DC movie. It's above Birds of Prey, but not by much. Black Adam then came in and made a respectable $393 million without even being released in China, which could have done more. That's more than the original Shazam made back when there was no pandemic. Black Adam actually did pretty decent. Yeah, it had a large budget, but for the money it made, it looked like things, people were happy. You had Henry Cavill back. There were people returning to the theater. And then they announced the whole entire thing is being rebooted. They got rid of Henry Cavill. And then Shazam! Fury of the Gods came in at $133 million. Pandemic's over. There's no reason for that. It was coming off of a decent first film, and yet couldn't even break $150 million. How pathetic is that? But you keep talking about how Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice was a failure. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't even think the Batman that came out a couple of years ago made $873 million. In fact, let's find out. So let's take a look and see the Batman box office gross. Let's find out here. Yeah, so look at this. The Batman box office gross was only $771 million. But they talk about how this made more money than Batman vs. Superman did. And you want to know why it made more money? Because the budget was cheaper, and you could tell. It didn't cost a whole heck of a lot of money to make the Batman. The action sequences there are no amazing action sequences in this film other than the car chase. Outside of that, there are no memorable scenes with Batman, nothing that stands out as something amazing that you would want to show people over and over again. And, the scene at the very end in the catwalk was the closest we're going to get, and even that seemed a little slow and lethargic. So that second film is either going to make or break that franchise, because if there's not major growth in that character and we could see some really decent action with Batman, it's not going to have any legs to stand on. So it made $100 million less than Batman vs. Superman did. Yet people call this a box office success, and it made more money simply because it had a smaller budget. So people keep talking about how awesome the Batman was. And yeah, it's a decent film. I have a lot of problems with it. I think it is a very flawed movie, and I've talked about that. You can go see my review and see some of my other videos where I've talked about that, but it's not the movie. It didn't make as much. For it being the Batman, you got that name brand. It should have made a lot more money than that. Now, this quote by James Gunn cracked me up. It says, "It's really about focusing on the creative process and not being distracted by money, which the studios care about, power, which he craves, attention, which he craves, negativity, which he draws in. If I could do that, then everything works out." You know who actually lives this? Was Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder focused on the creativity process. He was never distracted by money. He was never looking for power. He was never looking for attention, and he has never been negative towards people. Yet, his stuff is looked at as trash. So these two guys couldn't be on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I'm pretty sure that the studio cares about money, and I'm sure they care about attention. So to me, this quote seems a little short-sighted by James Gunn. More power to him if he can function that way, but that isn't going to make his stuff a success. That's for dang sure. So yes, my negativity towards James Gunn is going to continue, and I will continue to criticize him based on his actions. I'm never going to go after him personally, but I have seen enough of his stuff to know I don't want his style. I don't want it anywhere near DC. Everybody will keep saying, well, he said it's not going to have the same tone as all of these other things. I don't care. The Flashpoint storyline, the Flashpoint movie, should have been a more serious film, but it is a straight-up comedy. If you go in and you count how many jokes and quips that there are throughout that film, you will find it is the funniest DC movie that has been released to date by far. Now, I do have my tickets. I am eager to see it one more time with my wife. I think she's going to enjoy it. I think the general audience may enjoy this film a lot more than DC fans will. But they have totally bastardized the Flashpoint storyline. If they would have had Jeffrey Dean Morgan back as Batman and made it more serious, you could still have the funny stuff surrounding Barry if you needed to, but the other stuff could have been done in a more serious manner. So let's talk about this supposed post-credit scene and some of the things that are going to happen when The Flash does premiere next month. And I was thinking about this. Because it's about Barry trying to save his mom, they should have released this around Mother's Day. There was really no competition. Like, they really should have shuffled this around and had it out sooner. Because then it could have had legs through then and through Memorial Day. I think it was a missed opportunity to release it on Father's Day. At any rate, let's talk about this post-credit scene. So if you don't want to know anything, and I don't know if this is true, you're going to want to log off now. Supposedly, one of the post-credit scenes is Barry Allen with Aquaman. So we're going to have, what's his name back as Aquaman. That they're in a bar, and they're talking about the differences between the new Batman that Barry sees at the end of the movie. Now, we did not see in the fan showing, we didn't get to see who the new Bruce Wayne was when he got out of the car. They didn't show us. It cut away. You just saw Barry say, "Who the F is that?" And then the movie was over. They may go a little bit farther, because one of the things that we heard before there were any showings is that George Clooney was going to be back as Batman. I'm hoping he's not the brave and the bold Batman, because he's way older than Ben Affleck is. Again, this just shows you the studio didn't want to pay for Henry Cavill, and they didn't want to pay for Ben Affleck, that they want to go cheap. I do believe some of these we don't know what's going to happen with Gal Gadot yet, but we'll find out shortly, when they do some of these other things and announce some of these projects here in the future. But I can tell you Wonder Woman's not even a big part of anything they're going to be doing over the next 5 years. That's for sure. And so I'm guessing they're probably going to put a new Wonder Woman in there, but we will see. It's going to be interesting how they talk about some of the characters being the same and not others. George Clooney could be the guy that gets out of that car. I'm going to listen very closely at the voice, because I am familiar with his voice. We'll see, when the showing comes next month. I am going that Thursday night, so I will have a new review for the film up, and I will definitely talk about those changes when it gets released. All right, so there's my update for the day. I do appreciate it. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you will be notified as I have new videos go up.